there is still an open question for the reader. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you join the army? Would you flee from the country? Would you start a civil resistance kind of a thing? Would you help the kids?
Yeah.
Tons of options. There is that question as well. So that's why I think that might be useful for other people.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tales of Our Times. This is a show where we discuss the stories that move us, what makes them so meaningful, and why others could or should find meaning in them as well. Today, we have a very special interview that I recorded about a month ago with Dimko Zhluktenko about his memoir, Ordinary Guy at War. I hope you enjoy this discussion as much as I did, and I'll see you next week. So, welcome to the studio, Dimko Zhluktenko. Thank you for coming here today.
Thank you for having me, Amanda. That's my pleasure to be here with Radio Taiwan.
Today, I wanted to invite you in here to talk about your book, Ordinary Guy at War, which on your publisher's page is described as a deeply personal memoir, which would be your memoir, of a young Ukrainian caught up in events of the still ongoing Russo-Ukrainian war. Would you mind telling us and the listeners a little bit more about the book? And I suppose that will also include a little bit more about your own story.
Absolutely, I would love to. So basically the book is some of the events that were in my life before the invasion in 2022. I'm about 26 years old, so quite young, and some of my family was born deep in Siberia, in Russian concentration camp in Soviet Union. Basically, there is a big Ukraine-Russia history between those two, and my family was deeply involved in that. But anyway, I was born into the free and independent Ukraine, and was growing up here to be an aspiring freedom lover. But at the same time, in 2014, Russia has invaded Ukraine, and in 2022, it has invaded Ukraine again. But I was already at the age where I was able to understand the events that were unfolding right before me.
Right.
So I was able to take a very active part in what has happened after 2022. So basically the book mostly describes the human choices that I have done to help protect my home, help protect myself, my loved ones, after 2022 Russia's invasion into Ukraine. And it covers the topics of humanitarian disaster that was somewhat ongoing in 2022, the active warfare, the civil resistance, how we as civilians, let's say, together with my wife Irina, how we have raised, together with our dog Zyga actually, how we have raised over $4 million through crowdfunding for the needs of Ukrainian soldiers from donors from over like 75 countries, from like the United States or the UK or Australia or Europe or even Taiwan. So it covers that part, and actually it kind of challenges the existence of people or life of people within active warfare. That is still like life is not on pause, but there are so many of complicated things going on. At the same time, you still can make an enormous impact for your home, even being a civilian. So I think that's more about that.
Can I ask you about something you just said that I think is really fascinating? And I think what would probably strike a lot of people about your book was those words, life is not on pause, because I often hear those words used in a very different context whenever I'm discussing with people here the ideas of like culture shock, but basically kind of that idea that life continues to move on even as large and small, terrible and other not so terrible events kind of unfold. Is that something that you feel is really present in your book, like these normal milestones that are either happening or missed during your life or during the lives of your friends?
Absolutely. And I think even after like it's 3 years in, and we're on a fourth year of Russia's full-scale invasion.
Yeah.
It's impossible to put all of our lives on hold just because we actually want to live our best life, and there is no other time for that. So within that time of full-scale invasion, I got married.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Lost my mother in a fight against cancer. I joined the army, and we have created so many things, meaning that life is so packed with the events that it's I believe it's silly to start missing on those events and on those opportunities, on those chances to get your life in order, I guess. It's even more intense.
It kind of like paints more the reason why you would want to be getting to those milestones, it places a little bit more importance on them.
Actually, yes, I agree 100% to this because there is a certain risk to your life always going on. So I think there is some pressure given you might have some fear of missing out because you'll be killed. Well, how stupid would that sound? But life is so good and so precious and so fancy and so interesting that you actually just want to live. And that is part of the reasons why I'm here today in the studio in Taiwan with you, because I just want to enjoy all of those beautiful pieces and moments of life, traveling the world together with my loved one.
Yeah, of course. This is actually a really great a really great introduction to the next question that I wanted to ask you, which is also still kind of about your experiences. So something that I think is really striking from the stories that I've heard and from the pictures that I've seen of the war in Ukraine right now is the way that it has transformed many normal everyday places that are very familiar to us into honestly like war zones. But I wanted to ask you, in your own experience, kind of like before as a volunteer, as a civilian, and then later as a volunteer in the military, were there any moments where the mundane and the military reality sort of mixed together in a way that surprised you?
Well, I think maybe not surprising, but initially it was very weird for me to look at the places that got destroyed. And places like Kharkiv or anything closer to the front line, to the battlefield, the same usual places that we used to go to, cafes or, I don't know, government buildings, they were destroyed. So that was, I think, kind of a turning point in my mental state, realizing that nothing is, I don't know, sacred or anything. Same went with the churches in Donetsk Oblast. When I have been looking at how Russians destroyed them, it made me think a lot about that. Somewhat a Christian nation, specifically targeting the churches, because in churches people gather to pray. I think that was striking. Definitely striking. Yeah, and generally when it mixed, I think when I have started visiting also the centers for rehabilitations for Ukrainian soldiers that have been wounded in battle. We have many disabled people now, amputees and so on, and they are getting the prosthetics. It's very striking to see their resilience and how they, even after their harsh battles, they still keep going and they still keep trying to live their best life with the I don't know, prosthetic leg or something. That was a very striking reality to watch in Ukraine, especially in the city of Lviv, which where we are from. A lot of specialized hospitals for prosthetics, basically for rehabilitation for them.
I mean, and that's interesting because it does kind of go back to what we were just saying too as well. Like life can't go on pause even though these big changes are happening. And that point that you make as well, these things that seem like fixtures in the world even, that you would imagine to just like always be there. It must be like a truly world changing or like perspective changing experience. But let's get back into the experience of writing the book then. So I wanted to switch more into kind of asking you what your writing process was like. And what I meant specifically by that is this is a memoir. And I wanted to ask if you started out writing this book knowing that you wanted it to be a memoir, or if this started out as something else, like a journaling practice that eventually you decided, like, this is something I want to share with the world.
I think it all started as just a series of random notes in my phone. Then it turned into some random essays. In the very beginning, I guess, it was solely the creativity pushing outside of me because of all of the active warfare that was happening around. It brings you so much emotions, not necessarily that's good, but it's just a fact that when there is a certain risk to your life, your brain starts to function somewhat differently, I believe. I was actually questioning a lot of things in my life and figuring them out, questioning the history of my family, not question, but more kind of digging through
kind
it.
of like interrogating, like more for yourself to understand, right? That level of questioning.
Yes, exactly. And then trying to understand the enemy. Why is that they want to kill all of us? And it was quite interesting. So at some point it turned into some couple of structured notes. Then so many of the events happened in my life, like losing friends who were fighting in the army, and that also forced a lot of creativity because that is very not usual.
No. Well, and it does sound like a lot of this started out as sort of like a processing for yourself, right? Like going through organizing your own thoughts and then going into realizing like this may actually be good for other people as well.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely, literally like self-decoding or anything, and then realizing that it could be very helpful for other people to understand the context that Ukrainians are living through, and how the active warfare actually affects Ukrainians and how it might affect other people. And in the end, I mean, there is still an open question for the reader saying, what would you do if you were in my shoes and at that time?
Then from writing the book, what was it like for you to go through publishing such a personal book? Because writing it and like your process of coming up with your own words and putting that down and then getting that into a manuscript, first of all, that's a whole thing by itself. But then like the publishing process usually involves like going back through and like re-editing and then rereading and reformatting. And so I guess how did you feel during that process? Like, was that sort of meditative? Was that sort of like organizational? Just speaking as like a writer, I know a lot of my own personal friends, when you're not even talking about your life, maybe you've made up something. It can feel very personal to have to go through and cut or rewrite or reorganize, but you're writing about your lived experience. So what was it like to go through then the publishing process with this like very personal memoir?
I think the easy part was that if you're writing about yourself and what you have lived through, there is a very obvious truth to what has happened, so you cannot edit that. So at least that stays. At the same time, all of the details, how you put that, I don't know, cinematographically.
Right. When you're painting the word picture, you have to figure out how to get it across.
So that is something that might need some editing. I was lucky to have a very great editor, Victoria, and she helped me a lot with her thoughts, suggestions, because all of the editing that I have done to the book was happening when I was already in the armed forces. So and being an active duty in combat role, which adds a lot of
pressure,
definitely, because apart from your combat job, when you have those kind of rest and relax days, you have to dedicate some of your time specifically towards that. And I mean, rest and relax days in Ukraine's army are not like completely rest and relax. You still have to do a lot of stuff, but you're just not on a combat mission.
Right. It's restful because you don't have to go out and fight, not necessarily because you don't have to do anything.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Then adding to that, now you have to go through and also check your editor's notes and make sure everything there is clear.
Yeah. But that was interesting, and I think I grew a lot through that process, so that was cool.
Did you find that on any level sort of meditative during those moments after, like, these are technically, we said, like, your break days, you still have stuff to do, but to me, it seems like there is the possibility that then taking a moment to revisit your thoughts, literally in the form of a book, could kind of serve like a meditative or like a recentering purpose
Yeah, definitely. Coming back to those thoughts and figuring out whether you still feel the same way or you
Yeah.
have changed, I think it brings a lot of mental activity into play. And that's why I think I have grew so much doing that, specifically the writing and then the editing, because within the moment of writing, you're definitely a different person after like 5 years.
That is fascinating. To the next point then, at any point during publishing this book, did you ever have a specific audience in mind? Because as we said, this kind of started out as like a personal project turned into a memoir, and then even just like what we were talking about, you're working on it while you're like on the front lines essentially. Did you ever have somebody pictured in your head when you were working on this book?
Actually, yes. And my initial idea was to make people abroad who can speak some English to feel empathy towards Ukrainian people. And help them find their own way if they are ever to be in such challenging national security situations such as Ukraine is right now.
Yeah.
So my idea was that at least the Europeans that might find themselves in such a complicated national security situation, I think they should understand that it's ordinary people who are coming to fight, and they have a very exact reasoning to do that, to protect themselves, protect their loved ones, protect their home. And I think in some way this should resonate with many Americans as well, because I think that's somewhat the American ideals, to protect your home, protect your family.
Yeah.
So I think these are more or less the messages and the audience that I want to reach out to, and generally help people feel empathy towards Ukrainian people and Ukrainian soldiers. It's not like we are some, I don't know, warmongers and we want to fight because we have nothing better to do.
Right.
Because actually we hate to fight. I would much better be traveling around the world and, I don't know, stay
with
here
your
in
dog.
Taiwan or anything.
Yeah.
But not fighting, because it really sucks. It's not fun. You can get killed,
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know that I have to do this because I want to protect my loved ones and my home. So
I think also impressing upon people that like these people that you read about, your family, you're not just a headline like somewhere around the world, right? Like you're somebody who you might even recognize, like you know people like this, even if you never have to be in the situation yourself. There is a lot of value in that. I usually like to ask people, what meaning do you hope that others will get from reading Ordinary Guy at War? But is that the meaning that you want? You want people to kind of really resonate with the idea that everybody you're reading about is a normal person who has their probably very mundane life, and that's what they're fighting to protect, that vision of life that a lot of us maybe take for granted.
Absolutely. And so this, and then I just want people to answer to themselves while reading this book, what would they do if they were in my shoes, and to challenge them with that question in some way.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think this has been a really clarifying conversation for me. It sounds like it's going to be an incredibly moving read. Where could people find your book? It is published in English, so for anybody who speaks English, this is a book for you.
It's on Amazon and also Google, Apple Book, title as Ordinary Guy at War, or you could find that by my name, Dimko, and printed on my personal Buy Me a Coffee. The Buy Me a Coffee version is the version that I will sign myself and anyhow ship it to you. It's also printed in the east of Ukraine, very close to the war zone. So,
well, I mean, like we were just saying, like life doesn't stop just because there's a war going on. So books are still being printed there, and this is one of them. We'll also put those in the description here. So if you're interested in reading that, please pick up this book. Take a look at Ordinary Guy at War. It's guaranteed to be an eye-opening experience for you. And thank you so much for coming in to talk to us today, Dimko. I think this has been wonderful.
Thank you, Amanda. And that's really my pleasure to be here to talk to you and the audience. Thank you for having me here.
And to all you listeners out there, this has been Tales of Our Time on Radio Taiwan International. Today we've been discussing Ordinary Guy at War, a tale of our time. And we'll see you next time.